Hey Ty, welcome to the His and Her Money Show.
Hello, how are you? I'm so glad to be here tonight.
We're glad to have you on the show because you have quite the journey to debt freedom that we know our audience can't wait to hear more about. But before we get into the details of your journey to debt freedom, can you just take a moment and introduce yourself to everybody that's tuned in and let them know what you are all about?
Sure. So, my name is Tai Abrams, and I am the co founder and CEO of an education organization called Admission Squad, where we help talented middle schoolers in New York City get into top high schools. I actually went to Duke University, graduated in 2009 and got a degree in mathematics, and have been churning through this debt for the past 7 years. And I successfully paid off 143,000 of college debt just last year in October. So I'm excited to be here tonight and excited to share my journey with your audience.
Wow, that is amazing. $143,000 worth of debt is quite an amazing feat. Break that down for us. Talk about the type of debt that you had. You talked about the total, and then tell us about the length of the journey to debt freedom.
Sure. So it was 143,000 after interest. About 60,000 was the principal was based on private loans. So that 60,000 could have looked like 80,000 after interest. And then the rest were subsidized and unsubsidized loans. And then I also had a Parent Plus loan, which is another private loan that was under my mom's name that she was, adamant about not paying off. She was like, "That's not my responsibility. You're gonna have to figure that out." So there were quite a few private loans, and I think we got it ourselves into a pickle because I didn't really understand that stuff, and I was insistent on going to an Ivy League or Ivy League status university. And it's just, something in hindsight that I really, warn parents against, not getting too attached to the brand. When you have to be mindful of the actual financials.
Awesome. Now you talk about hindsight. So what was it that took you from the place of I have to go to a prestigious university no matter what the cost? Student loans are the norm, I'm sure, for a lot of your college classmates at the time at such a prestigious university like Duke. To one day you having this epiphany like, I'm not cool with all this debt. I'm going to do something aggressive about it. Talk about what took you from being, debt is norm to debt is dumb. How did you get from there to there?
Well, to be honest, I was always ahead of the game in terms of my mindset. So when I first graduated, I knew that at some point I wanted to be married. I wanted to have children. Those two haven't happened yet, but I did say that whenever it did happen, I did not want to have six-figure debt, as a part of the burden that I was bringing into that marriage. And so from very early, I knew that, wow, if I graduated with 110, which is the amount it was when I first graduated, this can get worse. So I made it a priority from when I was, when I had first graduated, when I was 22, to just start paying it off. And I obviously developed different strategies. In the beginning, I was paying it off a lot slower. And then in the more recent years, I kind of expedited the process. But I made a goal. I made a decision very young to say I was not going to allow my 20s to finish with any college debt on my balance sheet, so to speak.
Now, some people, they get student loans and they have this six-figure balance by the time they get done with schooling. And to them, it's this insurmountable amount of debt. We've been told by people, I'll have a student loan payment till I die. I mean, they just adopt a mentality of, kind of they're in it for the long haul. So when you first got done with school, totaled it all up, did the number intimidate you, or were you just so determined that no matter what the final total was, I'm going to get rid of it?
No. So for the first year or two, I considered leaving America. I considered going off the grid. I looked up every possible loophole that was available, and there was none that worked for me. I did not go to the military. I was not going to teach in the school system for 5 years to get only 20% of the federal loans forgiven, especially knowing that I had private loans. So I called up Sally Mae. Again, they were not very flexible on, forgiveness programs. And so the other suggestion that I got from a lot of people in my network was, Obama's in office, he's totally going to fix everything. Like, just wait it out. And years would pass by, and I'm like, there was no forgiveness. I mean, he did the whole income-based repayment plan, and I'm a math person, so I understand that when you stretch out the term by lowering the amount that you have from a principal perspective, it just allows the interest to continue to multiply. So for me, that was not helpful because, at the end of the day, I would end up paying a lot more. So for me, I was like, after the first 2 years, I figured like, look, nothing's happening. I'm going to have to get on top of this to make it different for myself.
Okay, so you got to that point to where, you realize that, the help is not coming. It's all on you. If it's meant to be, it's up to me. So what did you start to do from a practical standpoint? Because you said that initially you started off just kind of going with the flow, making the assigned payments. And then in recent years, you really picked things up and took it to another level. So help our audience understand some of the practical steps that you took that maybe they could take too.
Yeah. So when I first graduated, I didn't just pay the minimum. I mean, I wasn't making a whole lot of money. I graduated at $55,000 a year. I still, of course, had to pay rent. I still had, basic living expenses. So I would still maximize whatever I could pay beyond, my basic living expenses. So I think I managed to pay between $700 to $1,000 a month, even when I had first graduated. Some months, you have fun, you want to go out and, and the next month you will kind of get back on track. But I think I kind of reached the epiphany and I did the numbers. I really worked it out. I was like, wow, so if I have over 100,000 and I'm only sending, 700 to 1,000 a month, this is still going to take me quite some time to finish. So I decided, like, what can I do that's going to allow me, unlimited access to income? And the only thing I knew was entrepreneurship. So I went ahead, it definitely took some time because entrepreneurship is a huge learning curve, but it's definitely a capacity where you can really control what you earn. So anyway, fast forward, I started off as a government consultant at Booz Allen Hamilton. 2 years later, came back to New York, switched to the education space, was working as a teacher, did not enjoy that. And after that, I actually switched to being a private math tutor, where I was kind of working for myself and just helping a lot of students and teaching them math. And then fast forward a little bit later, 2 years later, I founded my own company, helping kids to get into top high schools. So definitely, I have to say that I leverage entrepreneurship and the flexibility in terms of your earning potential that you have once you identify a specific market, and you figure out what they need, and you find a way to provide a service or product for it.
Talk about the process, because you said you went from this position to that position to this business to that business. How can people kind of look within themselves to find a skill set that they can create an avenue of entrepreneurship through? Talk about your process, because you said you hit these different points and along the way you figured some things out. Talk about the process of figuring out how to take your skill set and turn it into a business.
That's good. So first, it's what is the skill set? So, what kind of ignited me to even take this path was I used to interview a lot of folks within my first company, and me and my colleagues would do a lot of informational interviews to see if they really enjoyed their work. And 9 times out of 10, folks were just there because it paid the bills. It was very cushy, but they really were honest about saying that they didn't enjoy it. So me and 3 of my recent grad colleagues, we had challenged ourselves to figure out something that we were really passionate about, that we could devote our 20s to really go above and beyond and do something that we're passionate about. So for me personally, I dug deep. I figured out, what's something that I was always good at from as early as middle school. They say that sometimes as early as age 7, your true passion shows itself. And so you want to dig deep to figure out, what those things are. And for me, it was always math, which I was consistent with, and it was always working with children. Even though I was on Wall Street and I did government consulting, I always found a lot of free time to work with children and mentor them. So I figured, okay, how can I put math and children together? And that's where the whole, teaching math in high school came from. It didn't work out in the school system because I really think I like to work for myself. So that was kind of a natural, I had to go. And then I had a mentor. Another piece would be having strong mentors who worked with me and kind of encouraged me to say, you can do this. You have a phenomenal skill set, graduated top of your class in high school. You carried through with the same skill set in college. You can do this for yourself. So I definitely did not do it without a mentor. And he coached me on how to secure my first clients and what to do in terms of pricing. I started off very low, $15 an hour. And then, over time, you kind of increase your pricing and you figure out, who you want to target and all that good stuff.
Now, you hit a great point about mentorship, especially when it comes to entrepreneurship. I'm curious, when it came to your journey to debt freedom, did you have any people around you encouraging you? Were they discouraging you? What was the response like as you were going through all this with the end game in mind, like I'm going to get out of debt? What was the response when you were keeping people up to date on your progress and about your ambitions when it came to getting out of debt?
I had a lot of support around what the end goal was going to look like. I did not have a lot of support around the how. I think everyone was like, yes, Tyler, you can do this. Like, you knock out that debt. And I'm like, all right, so let's strategize. And it was just like, I don't know, girl, you're going to have to figure that out on your own. And I'm like, but I need help. So when I realized, wow, like not a lot of people have done this, I'm going to have to get busy figuring it out. There's the other challenge that I think I encountered was people my age want to just go out, have fun, spend money on eating out and, excessive traveling. And I do travel, but I travel on a budget. So I had to really disassociate, with certain people for periods of time so that I could really allocate those funds appropriately to me paying off this debt, it wasn't a priority for some of my other friends because they didn't have as much. So it's just, you had support in one area, but you didn't have support in other areas and you just have to figure it out.
How come that didn't deter you? A lot of people, when they don't have the rallying cry around them, when everybody around them is accustomed to debt and being in debt, and debt is the norm, how would you able to rise above that, maintain your focus and say, well, if that's what y'all going to do, but that's not my thing? How are you able to kind of tunnel vision your way through it and block out the noise?
That's a great question. And I always say it comes down to knowing your why. So my student loan journey was such a small part of the legacy that I want to leave. And I knew that it was a barrier to me getting to that bigger journey that I had. I see myself sending kids to school on scholarship, full scholarships. I see myself traveling all over the world and being a global voice. I see myself, starting multiple schools and being a mentor to not just children, but adults. So the vision was just so big that this was just one notch on the belt that needed to get pushed out of the way. And so, my momentum was, very strong towards that. And anyone who got in the way just kind of had to get pushed to the side. So I think I encourage people to really get a strong vision around who they want to be, what they want to accomplish on this earth, understand that debt is a stronghold and can prevent you from being able to fulfill a lot of those visions that I feel like God has for you, for that person, whoever it is that we're talking to tonight. And it's important that we don't live in bondage to anything, to anyone. And I strongly believe that debt has to do with that.
Absolutely. Debt is nothing but bondage. It's nothing but slavery. So we have to eradicate ourselves as soon as possible. Now, as you were going through this process, this 7-year journey to debt freedom, I'm sure it wasn't all a smooth road to get to the finish line. Talk to us about some of the obstacles that may have arose during this journey and how you were able to press your way through them to ultimately get to the finish line.
So definitely this whole journey to entrepreneurship. So one, I'll say, why did I choose entrepreneurship? I did not want to come up with all these strategies to pay off the debt and then be debt free and then still have to figure out how I was going to make it. And I still feel like jobs to a certain extent, at least for me, it's just not the answer. So for me, I had to go through the doorway of entrepreneurship. So with me choosing that as my solution, it took some time. Like there were a good 2 to 3 years that I had to actually go back to paying the minimum so that I could lay that foundation of entrepreneurship for myself. So those 2 years I had to get my own apartment. I was doing my tutoring within my apartment. It was very tough. Some of the months I didn't know where the next client was going to come from, but I still had to make sure that rent was being paid. I could feed myself. I could keep clothes on my back and all that good stuff. So the loans took a back seat. And that was the hardest part of the journey, because not only was I tackling this debt, but I was also tackling this journey of entrepreneurship that a lot of folks in my peer group just did not prioritize. So in a lot of ways, I became like a lone soldier to tackle this. And I just had to go ahead and find, those few people who wanted to prioritize entrepreneurship to go after it. So that would definitely have been the toughest part, where there were months where I was really scared that I wouldn't be able to make my rent and get stuff done. And I just I didn't put it into a forbearance, but I think I put the Sallie Mae into a interest only payments. So I didn't have to worry about the principal. So that brought it down to like, I think 150 a month instead of like 450 a month. So things like that were definitely a part of the journey.
Now, you're inspiring, I'm sure, tons of people that are listening right now, and they're thinking right now, the wheels are turning. What can I do? How can I turn my skill set into a business? For those that launch out and try to follow in your footsteps to use entrepreneurship as a means to achieve debt freedom, what would be some warnings you would give them that you learned to maybe lessen their learning curve a little bit?
Oh, that's so good. One, get a mentor. Like, even my mentor, as much as I had him, he did not know how to create a six-figure generating business that has sustainable cash flow. So I was kind of going off of his very limited knowledge. And I went into having an apartment, and it was one of the most uninformed decisions that I could have ever made, because I think I could have done it a lot better and a lot faster if I had mentorship from someone who had already reached, the six-figure income generating arena and beyond. So be mindful of who you get advice from and making sure that they've really accomplished where you want to go. In fact, make sure that they're 20 times ahead of you, so that even if you accomplished a fraction of what they've done, you know that you will be successful. So that's one. The second piece would be just like some planning. Like, I have a math brain. I know not everyone has a math brain, but you're going to have to, really adopt some of that mathematical thinking when you're starting your business up. I'm very good at sitting down and like figuring out, okay, if I want to make $10,000 a month, what's going to be my pricing for that? How many clients am I going to need? How can I get as much clientele in the shortest amount of time possible so that I still have free time? Because I love to travel. I love to have fun. So you do want to do some planning. I think some people get into entrepreneurship and they're almost like creating new jobs for themselves where they're exhausted, and they're, it's this concept of linear income versus multiple streams of income and automated income. Let's get on the automated income scale. So there's some preliminary studying that I think can be done while you are employed to start to understand different ways to earn, how much you want to earn, how much clientele it would require for you to get to that level, and then start some of that, laying that groundwork while you're employed so that it could be a smoother transition instead of this, I'm just going to quit my job and just figure it out. So I was 24 when I left my full-time work. And so I can afford to take those risks. Not everyone is in that same position. So risks are okay, but you want to be mindful of better ways to do it. Like calculated risk is a lot better.
Absolutely. Great advice. I mean, so you went through it. I mean, you went through the ups and downs, pauses, and then you went full force again, and you got to the finish line. Paint the picture for us about the moment when you made that very last debt payment.
Oh my gosh. So that was last October. I actually made my journey very public. I was at 45,000 in December of 2015. And I was just fed up. I was like, look, I even started a business. Why is this thing not done yet? This is ridiculous, And so it was December 2015. I said, I'm not going to let 2016 finish without me being debt free, period. And so at 45,000, I again, did some planning. I said, well, if I have 45 right now, I would need to, be sending at least 4,000 a month over the course of the next 10 to 11 months in order to accomplish this goal. So, I mean, it sounds crazy. It sounds like a lot, but I was intent on making sure that it happened. So I created a few streams of income in order to accomplish that amount. And so every month, I'm sending the 4,000. In the beginning of 2016, I ended up earning more than expected. So there were months where I was sending 6,000 and 7,000. There was one month when I sent 8,500. And so by the time I got to October, I believe I took like August off, just to kind of have fun with summertime. And then I was, I had like probably 1,000 left, and I'm like posting like crazy. I'm like, guys, I'm really almost done. And so by the time I had created so much momentum around it that when I paid the last payment, I was so excited. I felt free. I felt relieved. I felt a little anxious, but then excited. I also felt like, whoa, what is life going to be about now? Because so long it was based on like paying off this debt. So it took some time to kind of redefine who I was and like, give myself new identity. But definitely all good things, all great things.
Awesome. I mean, talk about that then, because what does life look like for Tai now? You're completely out of all this student loan when this was such a big part of your adult life, right? Was these student loans. This was the goal, and you were doing everything you could to get rid of it, then you accomplished it. Talk about how life feels now being debt free compared to when you calculated that debt total for the first time and you realized the mountain that was in front of you.
Right. So for sure, the first month or two, again, it was all these mixed feelings because I really didn't know how to define who I was for a little bit. And I felt that, wow, I had to like kind of reevaluate things. Did I just choose this business particularly or this skill set because I knew it was a means to an end? Or is it something I was genuinely passionate about? So I gave myself some time because, I mean, now I'm in a position to live life on my own terms. I'm still, not married. I still do not have kids. I see that as a blessing, at least at this stage in life. I'm still very young. I still want to travel a lot, right? So I really saw this as an opportunity to now live life on my own terms and really dictate what the next few years is going to look like. And so for me, what that looks like is writing books. I still have a love for children. I don't think that has changed. I want to like go deeper into mentorship. I have a passion about helping folks to not make the same mistakes that I've made. And so a lot of, the company that I started in terms of helping kids to get into top high schools, it's centered a lot around mentorship and a lot around getting those children on the right path for success. But I want to see myself doing a lot more traveling, book writing, book signings, and just being a global mentor to youth all over the world. And I'm taking those steps. Like I'm going to South Africa next month and then California after that. And I'm going to Morocco later on this year. So there's ways, right? And my brain can go there because I don't have this debt as like a stronghold. So for me, it's freeing. And that's how I feel now. And I want to enjoy at least another year or two of freedom. And then at some point I want to settle down and have kids. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. So looking back over this whole journey that you went on, what do you think was the biggest lesson about life that you learned along the way?
Right. There's a few, but the biggest one in terms of like preventing this from happening is just being more informed. And this is why I spend so much of my work with middle income, middle school families, because that's where this whole journey started for me. I met, the same mentor that I'm talking about. He was my math tutor in middle school, and he pushed me to get into one of the top high schools in New York City. From there, I got into Duke University. I was just riding this train to the top, so to speak. But there was no one talking about money. There was no one talking about money. I don't even think my mom, she didn't know what Duke University was. She pushed me to do exceptionally well, and I did. And so I thought it was a crime when she was telling me that I couldn't go because of a cost. So I just think that more people need to be talking about money a lot earlier, especially to children, because I just told her, I'm going to Duke. I'm going to have to figure out how to pay for it. I didn't know what those numbers meant. I didn't understand what I was getting myself into, but I just knew that my mother was not going to prevent me from going to the school of my dreams. So I just think it was a huge information gap for my family, being an immigrant, an immigrant family coming from a totally different country, and not knowing how to navigate the American education system. So I push more families to have these conversations earlier, to do your research, to figure out what scholarships exist. If you are middle income, understanding that some of those scholarships are not allocated for you. And so you might have to navigate the system a little differently.
Awesome. Now you're big on education, and so are we. And we often encourage our audience to educate themselves because, like you said, there's just not going to be taught to you in the school system. If you don't seek out the knowledge when it comes to finance, you're going to be stuck in a lot of ways. And so we encourage people to seek out books or podcasts or information. What would you recommend to them as far as maybe some books that could help them get their knowledge base up when it comes to handling their money appropriately?
There's a really good book for this specifically. It's called Debt Free You. This guy, Zach Bisonet, he talks about the college process and just how to think about it differently. I think he did an excellent job of helping families to be more thoughtful about how they're making the decision for college, for sure. Of course, you have the Susie Ormans who are going to talk about finances in general. Michelle Singletary, she was the prosperity/finance ministry at FBCG down in Maryland. So I look at it a few different folks. Tiffany the Budgetnista, she's on Facebook and doing an excellent job with providing access to financial education for a very low cost. So those are easy communities that you can get a part of. I don't think it's just about reading. I think it's about being in community with other people who prioritize financial empowerment and wealth building. And that's the really key. That's the real key that I still feel like we're still working on. This whole focus on wealth and understanding that when you put all of your money into loans without understanding the return on investment that you have to get out of a degree, that's your family wealth that is actually going not down the drain, but it's a significant amount. So we need to start having conversations around wealth and learning what that means, because I do see a lot of financial education on saving and, budgeting and all that stuff, but we need to understand asset accumulation and knowing if you are to go to college, how are you going to get, be worth more when you leave? And those are things that I want to teach on in the future.
Awesome. Incredible. So let's say perhaps there's somebody listening right now who loved your story and really are like, wow, she did it. That's amazing that she was able to do that. But then they look at their situation. They know how much debt they're in. They know, the different circumstances of their life, and they wonder if they even have the ability to follow in your footsteps. They're just not sure if they can do what you did. What words of encouragement would you offer to that person?
Anyone can do what I accomplished, and I did it with a lot of faith and trust in God. That's another piece. I'm not going to leave God out of the equation. There was a lot of prayer. There were a lot of nights where I was really crying to God, trying to figure out, show me the way. So you have to trust that you're not here on this earth alone, and that there is a more powerful entity that can supply you with the ideas, the visions, the strength, the willpower to get through. The second piece is don't do it by yourself. There are networks that you can plug into to actually get on track with this. And if there are friends that are kind of holding you back, unfortunately, you may have to disassociate for a little bit and be proactive about finding those folks that you can lock arms with to accomplish this goal. It's definitely possible. There's other folks who have done it. You guys have a huge following of people who've done the exact same thing. So we are not superhuman, okay? We're just folks who really said, I'm not going any longer with debt. And so we're going to figure this out and be victorious. So just change your language, change your thoughts, change the vision that you have for yourself. And then you're going to start to see that success in your life.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So can you tell everybody a little more details about your company and how they can connect with you?
Sure. So my company is called admissionsquad.org. We are based here in New York. Again, we help talented middle schoolers get into top high schools. So the website is admissionsquad.org. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. You can find us there. We do a lot of virtual parent workshops to close that information gap for parents here in the New York City area as well. And me personally, my website, taiabrams.com, is going to be up pretty soon. And on Instagram and Facebook, I am Tai Abrams. And I'm on Twitter as Tai Abrams as well.
Awesome. Tai, this has been an incredible story. We know everybody tuned in surely got a lot of information and nuggets and inspiration from you. So thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to share it with our audience today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. And I do hope that a lot of folks who are listening will be proactive about tackling their debt.